Hello, and welcome to the Walpole Business Spotlight Show. My name is Harry Brusades, and I'm the president of the Walpole Chamber of Commerce. This show is brought to you through the efforts of the Walpole Chamber and Walpole Media TV. The goal of the show is to bring into spotlight local business owners and sales professionals that live or work locally, so our general public can get to know more about their products and their services, get to know, like, and trust them, so they can make great, informed buying decisions. So my guest today is Dave Arico from Bristol Strategies. Arecchio. I'm sorry, I was going to ask you before we started, but Arecchio.
Yes.
All right. So Dave, we had met a couple times, and you just recently joined the chamber a couple months back.
Absolutely.
And it was interesting how I think you and I had probably engaged on LinkedIn for the last couple years and just didn't really know who each other was.
Correct.
And I was sitting at the Walpole Farmers Market when it first started this year.
Exactly.
And you walked by, and I said, I think I know you.
And I stopped by and I said hello. I said, hey, what's going on?
Right.
And you shared with me some of the work that you were doing.
Sure.
It was pretty exciting.
And that's the power of LinkedIn.
Exactly.
So that works out pretty good for businesses.
Exactly.
So we got to talking, and you had mentioned how you were hoping to join the chamber.
Yes.
And you had done that pretty quickly. And then we had coffee.
Yes.
And you told me a little bit more about your business, and you got to know a little bit about me and the chamber.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we try to do in the chamber, as far as building relationships and getting to work with each other.
Correct.
So now, here you are, and I was interested that you know, you've been a long-standing member of Walpole for many, many years.
Absolutely, yeah. So, in actual fact, my parents moved to Walpole when I was 4 years old.
Okay.
And up in Woodruff Road, up in North Walpole.
Yep.
And I grew up in Walpole. I went to the Walpole schools, Fisher School as a young boy, then what used to be called the West Junior High School, and then the high school. So I'm a graduate of Walpole High.
Okay.
And then went to Northeastern University and got a degree in electrical engineering from Northeastern, actually 2 degrees, master's in electrical engineering after getting my bachelor's. And I worked in high tech in the local area for many years after that.
Excellent. So when you went to Fisher School, is it the one that's standing now, or is it the one that's up on 1A? Did you ever notice?
No, yeah, it's the one that's standing now.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
I think that one is like 1920s.
It was before the renovations, right before they added onto it.
Oh, okay.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. Very good.
I remember my teachers very fondly. They did a great job.
So, married?
Exactly.
Children?
2 children. I've got twin boys that are 27 years old. Both went into high tech. One's a computer scientist, one's an electrical engineer, and they're thriving in their jobs.
So, again, you had studied electrical engineering and started your career early 80s, it looks like, in the communications world.
Yeah, exactly. So just to build the story out for you.
Yes, please.
So I joined a high-tech company up on 128 called LTX. They made test equipment for the semiconductor industry, and I went from there to a software company that was a startup. So throughout my career, I had joined pre-IPO companies and helped them grow their businesses and go public, and I went from one company to another. And I think it's for the most part, I navigated towards or liked the startup companies more because you could do more in those companies. And you know, after several years as an engineer, I then pretty quickly moved into marketing and sales. And I think part of it had to do with the fact that I had an aptitude for taking complicated things and communicating them and making them easy for people to understand what they were. So I've been in technology for many years. Ultimately, stepped in as CEO of a startup company up in Bedford, Mass. several years ago, and grew that company. And then once that had an exit, I basically decided that I wanted to help companies with their marketing and their sales activities. So I started Bristol Strategy to help address the needs that companies have nowadays. And those needs have changed quite a bit recently with the way the internet has really disrupted a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I know, and one thing we talked about your transition there, how it was very unusual for an engineer to then become marketing and sales.
Well, it was very interesting for me. I was obviously a technologist, and I loved engineering. I loved creating new things. I loved, having a problem that was unsolved and solving it. And that was really, really, really cool. One of the things that my managers that quickly figured out was I was one of those engineers that could talk and chew gum at the same time. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, and what I found happened, it was almost like by mistake, that they would basically prop me up in front of the customers and ask me to explain something. And I would, again, not sure how I did it, but I was able to describe very complicated items simply to people. And back in my first job, again, I was testing semiconductor devices. And there's nothing more complicated than a semiconductor. And the physics involved and trying to make one of those things work is really a challenge. So the fact that I was able to really translate complicated ideas into simple ones was one of the things that propelled me onto that sales and marketing path.
And I think when you first started the new business, which is Bristol Strategies, I think you were more focused on the larger companies.
Yeah, there's a mix.
Okay.
So basically what I've learned, so just getting back to why I started Bristol Strategy and some of the core things, what we discovered, and many companies are discovering nowadays, is that the internet has really disrupted the way in which companies engage with their prospects. And if you think about sales 10 years ago, most salespeople could pick up the phone, call into a business and say, I need to speak to Joe in engineering because I provide solutions for engineering teams. And the receptionist would find Joe, make the connection, and you'd start your sales call. And you'd find out, as a salesperson, you'd qualify whether there was a real opportunity or not, and the prospect would figure out whether you actually had something that they needed. And pretty quickly, a salesperson could engage with a number of these calls and get access to the right kind of people. Then the internet came around and really started to grow, and there's so much data on the internet now that prospects can do all of the research they want until they're 2/3 of the way through the buying cycle before they pick up the phone and speak to a salesperson. So that vast amount of data has really disrupted the whole sales process to the point now where people don't answer the phone. You can't get the customers to answer you. So in order to implement what we used to do as salespeople, right, get access to the buyer early in the sales cycle, nowadays you have to be found and you have to be engaging in providing educational content for people early in the sales cycle. So when I had completed that startup company, I had to address that particular core problem with that startup, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have had any customers. And I discovered that so many businesses have the same problem. Their leads are drying up, their revenue is not growing, their company is not growing, and they need a vehicle to really help them grow their sales. So that's what caused me to create Bristol Strategy, because I knew how to solve the problem, and I felt that there was plenty of companies that needed it solved.
Just like during the show, I like to just always make sure that your contact information is known. And again, it's Bristol Strategy, Inc.
Yes.
And it's www.bristolstrategy.com.
Exactly, yep.
And people can reach you on your personal phone.
Yes.
At 508-921-0312.
Correct.
So, again, the conversation that we had led to more of the medium-sized companies.
Yes.
And I think another example was car sales, too, when, most people, I think, that are buying cars are showing up to the lot, already know exactly what car they want, what specs they want on the car, and they've already shopped price back and forth, and they know exactly, almost to the penny, where they need to be, or they're walking in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's what we're seeing today, whether that be a landscaping company, a painting company, a mortgage company,
exactly,
real estate sales,
yes,
you name it. Like you said, the buyer today is 20 to 30 times more educated than they were before. A lot of that information comes from the internet, social media as well.
Yes.
A lot of things that have to do with the company's reputation can be found on the internet or through social media, so you have to be careful there. And then it's just about trying to target those people or contact those people. as you say.
Exactly.
So that's where your company comes into play with the strategies of inbound marketing and sales. It's not just put an ad in the newspaper anymore and wait for the phone to ring.
And I think you made a critical transition there. And as I described the problem of salespeople having lack of access to the buyer, and this problem exists for business, B2C and B2B, so business to consumer and business to business. And I like to say it's really H2H. It's human to human, right?
True.
You're not, regardless of who your customers are, they're all human. So you need to communicate them and deliver valuable information every time you reach out. So when we talked about the fact that the buyers are taking 2/3 of the time to find before they reach out to a salesperson, the solution to the problem is a methodology called inbound marketing, and you just mentioned that. And the way inbound marketing works is you basically have a methodology where you provide information that attracts people to your digital asset, which is website, social media sites, whatever you have online that represents your business, that attracts them. You offer them things of value that causes them to convert into a lead, meaning you know who they are because they're doing their research. Now you know who is doing research to solve problems that you solve, and you know about that early in the sales cycle. Once they've converted, you have the capabilities using digital methodologies, email, social media, and other means to convert them into a customer. And then once they become a customer, your educational content isn't lost, right? Even your customers want to learn about how you solve problems, and they become promoters of your business. So that methodology really takes a prospect through the whole life cycle digitally and gets them to become promoters of your business. I'll tell you, last year when I was looking to replace my roof on my house here in Walpole, the first thing I did...
Last year?
Last year.
Didn't you just put something on Facebook? I'm looking for a roofer today.
No. I linked on that for someone else that was looking to replace their roof.
Okay. See,
I wanted them
I'm
to
in
see.
tune with what's going
so
on.
I typed into the Facebook page, the Walpole Recommends page.
Yep.
I said, does anyone have any recommendation for roofers? And I got a whole bunch of responses and recommendations. It turns out one of those on the list I actually hired, and they replaced my roof. And in fact, recently, a friend reached out and asked, okay, do you have any recommendation for roofing? And I said, well, you should look at the Facebook page where I asked the question. Okay. And I linked him to that particular thread. Right. But the point is, your existing customers need to be promoters. And the roofer that I actually hired had multiple people raving about the work they had done. So that's an example of doing a good job for a customer, having the customer know about the work you do, and when some stranger types on social media, hey, this, who's got a recommendation for a roof? They care enough not only to take their time, that they're posting in a public forum that you're doing a great job for them. Right. Isn't that magical?
It is. Yeah, it's very nice. I've seen that happen for my services a couple times. Unfortunately, it's like whether it be a real estate agent, a mortgage loan officer, financial planner, somebody asks for something like that, and there's 20 different people that are recommended, and it's almost like a lottery.
That will happen. That will happen
if you'll get picked.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I was just thinking of that recent commercial that I've seen where, two neighbors come out to their mailbox and they say, "Hey, how you doing?" And the guy says, "Hey, do you know anybody that does roofs?"
Yes.
And the other guy says, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Great, I will get on that. By tomorrow, I want 2 proposals with recommendations." And
that's a funny commercial.
I don't know, what was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I think it was a referral site, one of these referral sites. But basically, I think the key is the methodology supports access to the prospect from the early stages of their buying cycle and nurtures them until they're ready to engage with you. And that's the problem that inbound marketing solves. And Bristol Strategy is an inbound marketing agency for businesses who are looking to address the need of getting access to the buyer and growing their business. We help people grow through digital marketing.
So we're hopefully going to be able to get a couple slides that come up during the show as we talk about them.
Sure.
So we've kind of basically just talked about the first one, I think, which was, again, internet disrupts traditional marketing and the sales process.
Correct.
Prospects are delaying conversations with companies until they are about 57% of the way through the research, and then buying process, and then they start to reach out.
Exactly.
So, again, prospects, due diligence begins, prospect begins research on solutions, prospects first, then serious engagement with a sales professional, and then slowly but surely make their way through the process, and usually by the time that they're 85% informed, then they make a buying decision?
Well, they engage the buyer. Today, they're 2/3 of the way through the buying cycle. The 80% is according to Gartner. Gartner thinks that by 2020, buyers will not engage with the company they want to work with until they're 80% way through the buying
85
cycle.
we got here?
85, yeah. So it's going to basically get you to the point where, the problem's going to get worse, not easier.
So, I like to just use my example because it helps me learn as well.
Great.
So, I tried to come up with a couple things. And one thing that somebody told me was, to go on Google and register with Google. And my website the address is walpolelifeinsurance.com. And I believe that then directs people to my Facebook page.
Great.
So that's very infantile stages of this whole process.
Yes.
But you have to be fully macro driven when it comes to this process. You have to have all your
Absolutely.
bases covered.
Yes.
Because
yes.
number one is, I came up with the idea of coming up with these beach balls that have walpolelifeinsurance.com. And I gave out like 50 or 60 at the fireworks this year. Now, nobody took those beach balls, went home, said, oh yeah, I need life insurance, typed it in, and found me.
Right,
Okay?
right.
It's all about just trying to get that brand awareness out there. So hopefully at some point, if I do some print ads, if I have more social media, if I have some type of website that's done better and well because of the SEO search engines and stuff like
right,
that.
Exactly.
So all that stuff has to be implemented.
Exactly.
Correct? So let's go back to...
And the message I would leave you with, and I think you're emphasizing this, is you never know where your next great opportunity is going to come from, right? So you're doing all of those things. And it might not be last week, it may not be next week, it may not be next year, but at some point in time, somebody that got one of those beach balls is going to recognize the fact that they had a life-changing event and they need life insurance, and they're going to remember, well, what was the name on the beach ball? And they're going to remember the name, they're going to Google it, they're going to find you. And you'll get business from that and each and every tactic that you implement like that.
So then the next stage, though, is trying to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Say if you're going to my website, for me, I have no idea who goes to my website, when they go, how many times they clicked, or anything like that, because I haven't got to that process yet.
Correct.
But so you have to get to that point where you've got it
yeah.
in a website that has all the different target wording,
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly.
And then when people do go to visit, that so you can capture
Yes.
their information.
Yes,
So let's
exactly.
now start. So that's kind of, I think, where we are now, right?
Yeah,
So we're
exactly.
talking about inbound marketing methodology.
Yes.
And we're talking about attraction, converting, closing, and then
delight.
what would delight be?
Delight is when people are consuming your content and referring you
Okay.
to other people. And if you think about, you mentioned the fact that you don't know who's coming to your website, right? You don't know how many visits you're getting and whatnot. There are tools that now exist where you can get analytics about who's visiting your site, how many times they visit, which page do they go to. And when you start to engage with the prospects using email, you can tell, did they open it, was the email delivered? Did they open it? Did they click on any of the links? What pages did they visit when they clicked on the links? So nowadays there's the technology that can support your marketing digitally is so advanced that you as a salesperson can get so many insights into how people are consuming your data. And it's the analytics, it's what you learn about what people are doing that give you the tools to improve the way in which you're engaging with prospects online.
Right. So, it's important to, so we're here at the attraction phase, which is, getting your information out there, that whether it be blogging, social media, website pages that have certain keywords, and the
Exactly.
SEO is tied into
Yes,
that.
yes.
And then you've got the convert part, which is now visitors are getting to your pages.
Correct.
And you're trying to implement calls to action,
Yes.
landing pages, forums, contacts.
Yes.
So, like, say again, my example would be something where newlywed couple are having a child, they're starting to research life insurance, let's say, and they get to my page. So it'd be important for me to have information pertaining to 30-somethings and what their needs should be when it comes to life insurance.
Right,
what
right.
mistakes the populace makes
Right.
when obtaining life insurance. Too much, too little, wrong type, whatever that may be. And how would, so you would have to have like leading questions for them, I guess, right?
Well, so here's an example. So that was a perfect example. What I would recommend, one thread of this, and you got to think about the information flow almost like a funnel, right? What information do they need first? So you might write a blog, and that blog might be the top 5 things to consider when you're having a new baby, right? And that blog, you'd share it on social media and whatnot. And you know, there are going to be some young mothers that may have just had a baby and are wondering whether they were aware of the top 5 things. And then you'll have some newlyweds who are planning to have a child. And they would go to that blog, and you'd write a blog that's educational. And one of the things would be plan for a life event, get life insurance. And that's one of the things. And as a call to action at the bottom of that blog, you might say, if you're considering preparing for the bumps that your life can throw you, talk to us about life insurance policy. That call to action would link to a landing page where you would say, contact us for more information about life insurance. Or you may provide a white paper or something that talks about the 10 considerations for life insurance purchases, right? So again, the way I described those things, both of those items were valuable to somebody who was a newlywed or someone that just had a new child, and you're educating them about the considerations of life insurance. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Great.
Oh, I'm ready to hire you. I mean, you know that.
Okay.
I just got to get to that, incorporated level like of your clients.
Super.
So that was the second slide, hopefully, that
Yeah,
we're able
exactly,
to show,
exactly.
which is attract, convert, close, delight. So
Absolutely.
I don't want to make this all about me and life insurance. So
Sure.
tell me about the example of a landscaping company that we mentioned,
Yes,
if you could.
yes. Actually, I have 2 landscaping clients.
Okay.
The one that I like to refer to, and I won't mention the names,
Right.
just to keep things general here for the purposes of this show.
Sure.
The owner of the landscape company had a standard website, which most people do. So if you look at most websites, it's like a website as a data sheet, right? It's kind of like if you were to put up a sign in the window, what would you put there to describe your business? And a lot of business websites are like that. They'll list products, they'll list services, how do I contact you? So there's basic information. The problem with a website that's just like that is you're not doing anything to engage the visitor. You're not creating an active environment for them to be able to learn and engage and contact you. There's always a contact form, but that is the last thing that somebody's going to do in the buying cycle. So if you think about it, if I go to your website and I say, okay, I'm looking for insurance, and I go to your website, or let's keep it with the landscape example. I'm doing some search, okay, what are the landscape companies in the area? And I'll go and I'll look at several different websites. They all have the same material. If I go to a specific website and they have an article about, how to deadhead a daylily, and I happen to be in the mood to deadhead my daylilies, right, because the bloom has already gone off of them, and I want them to bloom again. That's what deadheading does.
Okay,
I've learned a lot.
You lost me there.
I've learned a lot about daylilies.
Okay.
But in any case, if I wanted to learn how to deadhead a daylily and there's an article there, I'd be learning about it. I would remember this, and they would have an ebook, and I would download that. Well, that landscape company would then let me know when other interesting articles were being published, and I may interact with them. So let's take the comparison between the website that just has static information and one that is engaging the buyer, right? What the difference there is, I didn't need the landscape company right away, right? But I was doing a research. A few months go by, and I say, oh boy, I really don't have time to do any of my maintenance, and there's a whole section of my yard that I need to redo. Of the 5, the one that's engaging with me periodically is the one I'm going to remember, right? And they have been influencing my knowledge over the months between the time when I first researched it and the time when I need the service.
Yep.
And because of that, I will reach out to that company first to engage with them. So the real difference there is having the right kind of content for the buyer at each stage of what's called the buyer's journey for information. There are times when they're just looking for information. There's times when they're considering a landscaping company to engage with them, and there's times when they're ready to buy. So that particular landscape company, I engaged with them. We did a complete website redesign utilizing best practice, and as a comparison between the before and after, the number of leads that they got before we did the redesign and the implementation of inbound marketing, they increased their lead flow in the following year by 500%. And that helped them really generate some much greater level of business in that second year.
That's excellent. So hopefully the next slide talks again about what type of information do prospects seek, and that's through the awareness stage, consideration stage, and decision stage. Things again, like you mentioned, white paper, free ebooks, free videos,
exactly.
And then moving on to case studies, free samples, catalogs, and then finally at the decision stage, which is free trials, demos, free consultation, estimates, and quotes.
Exactly.
When they're really there to make a decision.
Exactly. Just on the decision stage, think about the ways in which you want to engage with a prospect. You may have specific processes you want to implement when you're engaging with a buyer, and the way in which you engage with them there, that can help smooth the sales process as well.
Excellent. So again, we've got bristolstrategy.com, and here's a list of your services: inbound strategy, buyer persona research, website design, content marketing, blogging, sales enablement, search engine optimization, which is SEO, social media, and video marketing.
Exactly.
And again, if I could tell the viewing audience, especially business owners and sales professionals, please reach out to Dave, hear what he has to say. He can tailor his knowledge to almost anybody's business or product.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And if he's not the right fit, he'll tell you that that's the case and
I'll refer
where
them
you
to
may
somebody
want to
else.
go.
Exactly.
I can tell you that the Chamber has been desperately seeking social media specialists, bloggers, website designers, etc. You kind of do it all.
Yes.
But you do have other people that maybe be a web designer and stuff like that. So hopefully we can work more on that.
Absolutely.
And we can do a couple more presentations.
That'd be great.
For our membership. So we are getting closer to the end. One thing I always like to ask everyone, any hobbies, Dave?
Well, you know, it's, I'll have to share one. One of my passions is craft beer. And I used to brew beer, and that was one of my hobbies. But because of, you know, I would say in the last 3 to 5 years, the influx of craft breweries in the area has just gone up. And the quality of the beer is just so much better than what I was able to brew myself, that I'm now one of my hobbies is finding unique beers and trying them. So that's the one hobby.
Nice.
Obviously, I'd have to say that another passion of mine, obviously, is digital marketing. I do it for my own business and for my clients, and you can tell by the way I talk about it, I really, really love it. And I'd say the third, you know, there's you know, doing stuff around the house and basically keeping the house up to date. I'm sure many homeowners out there have that, and sometimes you can view it as a hobby, sometimes it's not. And I'm also a lover of really fine coffee. So I'm a coffee nut, and I buy all my beans from Barrington Coffee out in Western Massachusetts. Anyone who loves really, really well-roasted premium coffee, try Barrington. If you've got suggestions for freshly roasted coffee, I'd love to hear about them.
Excellent. All right, well, we're out of time. Greatly appreciate you coming in.
Thank you
and
so much.
informing everyone about what they need to do when it comes to inbound marketing and website design and sales and all that stuff. So again, thanks everybody for joining us today for another episode of the Walpole Business Spotlight Show. Our guest today was Dave Orecchio. Orecchio.
Yes.
How am I going to remember that? Orecchio. And Bristol Strategy. So please reach out to his website, www.bristolstrategy.com. And thanks again for seeing us today. It's all about getting to know people that you know, like, and trust so you guys can make great buying decisions. Be well, be safe.